June 19th, 1977. Rapid City, South Dakota. Elvis Presley stood backstage at the Rushmore Civic Center, staring into a cracked dressing room mirror. The king of rock and roll was about to go on stage again, but this time something was different. His reflection looked like a ghost of the man who had once electrified the world. His eyes, once sharp and filled with mischief, were now tired. His hands trembled slightly as he adjusted the high collar of his white jumpsuit. The sequins still sparkled, the lights still glowed, but the man inside the suit looked broken. He took a slow breath and whispered under his breath, "Come on, E, one more show." Outside, the crowd of 12,000 was already roaring his name. "Elvis! Elvis! Elvis!" The sound rolled through the hall like thunder. Charlie Hodge poked his head through the door. "They're ready for you, E." Elvis didn't answer right away. He just looked at Charlie, eyes heavy but calm. "Charlie, you ever feel like you already sang your last song, but your body don't know it yet?" Charlie frowned. "You still got plenty left, man." Elvis smiled faintly, but there was no conviction in it. "Yeah, that's what I keep telling myself." He picked up his trademark scarf and draped it around his neck. The scarf still smelled faintly of cologne and sweat, the scent of 1,000 encores. When he finally walked toward the stage, the sound hit him like a wave, the screams, the flashbulbs, the chaos, all of it. But deep down, Elvis knew something no one else did. He knew this might be the last time he'd ever stand in front of an audience. Flashback. Graceland. 3 nights earlier. The house was quiet except for the ticking of a grandfather clock in the hall. Elvis sat at his piano in the jungle room, his fingers idly pressing keys. Lisa Marie's photograph set beside the metronome. He whispered to himself, "Daddy's still here, baby girl." The last few months had been brutal. The tours were shorter, the pills stronger, the silence in his house louder than ever. Priscilla had moved on. The Memphis Mafia didn't joke around like they used to. And Elvis, the man who once commanded the world, now found himself battling something he couldn't charm, sing, or joke his way out of: himself. He looked around the jungle room, the shag carpet, the tiki lamps, the walls that used to echo with laughter. Now, it felt like a museum of memories. Elvis pressed a single key, middle C, and the note hung in the air. Then he said quietly, "Tomorrow, I gotta go sing again. Maybe that's what keeps me alive." June 19th, backstage again. The announcer's voice boomed through the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Elvis Presley." The crowd erupted, and for a moment, Elvis felt that familiar jolt of energy, the same spark that had first caught fire in a tiny Memphis studio over 2 decades earlier. He stepped into the light. The band kicked into C.C. Ryder. The horns blared, the guitars sliced through the air, and for the first few minutes, you'd swear you were watching the old Elvis, hips moving, eyes flashing, voice still larger than life. But halfway through the second song, something happened. Elvis's breathing faltered. He leaned slightly on the microphone stand. Charlie Hodge glanced at him nervously, but Elvis gave a subtle nod. "Keep playing." He made it through the song, but as the applause hit, Elvis felt his heart pounding in a strange, uneven rhythm. He smiled at the audience, sweat glistening on his forehead. "Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. You've been a beautiful audience." Then he turned back toward the piano. He sat down and began to play Unchained Melody. It wasn't supposed to be on the set list that night, but Elvis didn't care. He had to sing it. His voice cracked at the first line. "Oh, my love, my darling." The hall went silent. Even the band stopped moving. It was as if time itself froze to listen. Elvis's voice wasn't what it used to be. It was rough, trembling, imperfect. But in that imperfection was something deeper than he'd ever given before. Pain, regret, love. He hit the high note and closed his eyes. For a second, his body seemed to give out. His left hand slipped from the piano. Charlie started to step forward, but Elvis waved him off. He kept singing. He finished the song with tears in his eyes, whispering the last words more than singing them. And time goes by so slowly. When he looked up, 12,000 people were standing, crying, clapping, not for the king of rock and roll, but for the man behind the crown. Elvis smiled, small and tired. "Thank you. You've been a wonderful audience." And for a brief moment, he looked free. Backstage later that night, Elvis collapsed on a couch. His body was shaking, sweat poured down his temples. Joe Esposito rushed in with water. "E, you okay?" Elvis just nodded weakly. "Yeah, just a little tired." But Joe could see it. Something was wrong. His hands were trembling, his lips pale. Still, Elvis forced a grin. "How'd it sound out there, Joe?" He hesitated, then said softly, "Sounded like the old days, E. You had him in the palm of your hand." Elvis smiled again, faint, genuine. "Then it was worth it." Flashback, 1956, Louisiana. Elvis was 26, standing backstage with his first guitar on a wild grin. The world was just beginning to know his name. Sam Phillips told him, "You're changing music, boy. Don't ever lose that fire." And Elvis had laughed. "Fire's all I got, Sam." Now, 2 decades later, the fire was almost gone. But tonight, he found one last spark. June 26, 1977, Indianapolis, Indiana. 8 days later, the final concert. No one knew it would be the last. Not the fans, not the band. Not even Elvis. Perhaps. He walked out on stage at Market Square Arena wearing his Phoenix jumpsuit, the one with the golden bird embroidered across the chest. The crowd's roar was deafening. Elvis lifted his hand. "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen," he said. "Before we start tonight, I just want to say it's been a hell of a ride." The band launched into CC Rider, and for the next 90 minutes, Elvis gave everything he had left. Every note, every breath, every ounce of strength. There are moments he nearly stumbled, moments he forgot the words, moments where his voice cracked. But every time, the crowd cheered louder, as if they knew, as if they were telling him, "It's okay, Elvis, we're still here." Halfway through Are You Lonesome Tonight, his voice trembled. He stopped, chuckled softly, and said, "Man, I forget my own song sometimes. Can you believe that?" The audience laughed with him. And for a fleeting second, Elvis wasn't the king of rock and roll. He was just a man, flawed, human, and loved. Backstage, after the show, he sank into his chair, exhausted. Charlie handed him a towel. "That's it, man. That's the one. You do it." Elvis didn't answer. He just looked down at his hands. They were shaking again. He whispered, "Charlie, I think that's all I had left." Charlie frowned. "Don't say that, E. You'll be fine." But Elvis shook his head. "Nah, man. You can't fool the soul. Tonight felt like goodbye." He stood up slowly, took one last look at the stage curtain, and smiled. "Guess the show's over." 2 months later, August 16th, 1977, Graceland. Early morning. Elvis's house was quiet again. No applause, no band, no spotlight. In the upstairs bathroom, Elvis Presley fell to the floor. By the time they reached him, the king was gone. News spread like wildfire across the world. The man who gave everything, his voice, his body, his heart, had finally run out of all three. But in living rooms and record stores, people didn't cry because a celebrity had died. They cried because Elvis had reminded them of something they'd forgotten. That even legends are human, and sometimes the greatest performance isn't the perfect one, but the one where you give all you've got left. 40 years later, Graceland tour guide, speaking softly to visitors. She said, "When people ask what Elvis's last great show was, I always tell them it wasn't about the voice or the moves. It was about the courage." She pointed to a photo on the wall. Elvis at the piano in Rapid City, eyes closed, singing with every bit of his soul. She said, "That was the night Elvis realized he lost everything, but somehow he still gave us everything he had left."
Backstage after the show, Elvis sat quietly, towel around his neck, staring at the floor. The roar of the crowd was gone, replaced by a heavy silence. Charlie Hodge handed him a bottle of water, but Elvis didn't take it. "Charlie," he said softly, "do you think they still feel me out there?" Charlie frowned. "They love you, E. Always will." Elvis gave a faint smile. "Love's easy when the lights are on. I just hope they know I still mean every word I sing." He looked toward the dark stage, his reflection faint in a mirror rimmed with bulbs. "You spend your whole life chasing the spotlight," he said. "Then one night you realize it was never the light you wanted. It was the warmth." He stood up, still breathing heavy from the show, and whispered, "If this was my last one, I'm glad I gave it everything I had." Charlie nodded. "You did, E." Elvis smiled, just a little. "Then that's enough." And with that, he walked away, the echo of his boots fading like the final note of a song the world would never forget.